Welcome to Breakthrough. I'm your host, Sharon Joseph, and it's always an honor to come to you live every Sunday right here at 7 p.m. Now, on this broadcast, what do? I share tips, tools, and insights for life. Last week, I began a series that will be taking us through the entire month of September, where I get an opportunity to boast about two cities that I love a lot. One is New York City, but my new love is Connellsville, Pennsylvania. So stay tuned because you'll learn a lot about why I'm encouraging New Yorkers to discover Connellsville, Pennsylvania. Now, here on this program, I help people live and lead with passion for their purpose. How do I do that? Through coaching, assessments, and helping them build confidence, communication, and leadership skills. And how do I help businesses grow? I help them through consulting, training, assessment, advising them on strategic directions, and so much more. Now, if you need to reach me, you can do so at sharonajoseph.com, or that's the website, so you can actually reach out to the website you can contact me via the website or through SAJ Consulting Services at gmail.com. Now, my passion, or the passion for my purpose, I believe, is to help other people live purposefully and accomplish their life's purpose. By the way, if this is your first time joining me, please like and share your comments with me. And if this program is a blessing to you, I encourage you to click on, well, one, subscribe, and two, click on the notification button so you'd know when I'm producing or broadcasting life transforming programs. And I normally do it on a weekly basis. I mentioned earlier that my passion is to help other people live their life passionately, with passion and purpose. So this broadcast deals with everything surrounding helping you live more purposefully and more confident in your purpose. Recently, I realized there's a huge difference between my life in Connellsville now and the 25 plus years I've lived in New York City. And I've realized that there's a major difference between life in New York and life in Connellsville. And by the way, as I go through this program, if you have a breakthrough story that you'd like to share with me, or that you'd like me to talk about on this program, would you please email me at breakthroughtti@gmail.com. That's breakthroughtti@gmail.com. And if you're going through a challenging time at this moment, I encourage you to stay tuned until the end, because at the end, I will pray a special prayer just for you. Now, last week, I broadcasted from Museum Mile in New York City, just across the street from the great Central Park in the heart of New York. I visited my 92-year-old adopted dad. He's 92 years old, and you would believe he's just about 65 years old, because he's so agile and active, and he's still driving, and we walked like over a mile. Well, it used to take us 10 minutes. It took us 1 hour, but that's okay because we did it. We did it together in Central Park. So that was really, really wonderful. And that inspired me, just that trip to New York inspired me to talk about the differences between New York and Connellsville, Pennsylvania, and to explore some of the benefits and challenges of each. Now, although I was born in Trinidad, as most of you know, and Trinidad celebrated its 59th year of independence this past Wednesday, I have gone to school, graduated from NYU, and worked on Wall Street, all in New York City. I've lived in that city for most of my life. I call it home. Now, I must tell you, it's in my DNA, so if I boast a little, forgive me. But Connellsville is my new home, and I just love it. And to share a funny story with you, last week in church in New York, one of the guys I sang in the choir with, he approached me and he said, "Sister Sharon, everyone else I know seems to be growing older, but for some reason you seem to be growing younger." What a great compliment that was. When I left, and obviously I was appreciative of it, but when I left, it occurred to me that the hustle and bustle And the craziness and busyness of New York City could indeed age you. So I really value being here in Connellsville, in this beautiful city, now more than ever. I know firsthand of and about the many things that keep New Yorkers in New York, or keep people wanting to stay in New York. And many times it could be as simple as FOMO, the fear of missing out. And but I'm here to share with you the fact that you can create new avenues, new things, new interests, things that would make your life exciting and joy filled, and also keep you younger. I love the shopping in New York. I love the diversity. As a matter of fact, I'll go through a few of them. I went through several last week. I'll go through a few more today, and then I'll begin sharing about Connellsville. I'm saving the beauty and the amazement of Connellsville for last. So forgive me if I just explore a little more about my love for the city. And again, all of this month I'm doing this. So please stay tuned right here. Now, New Yorkers, if you're listening, and I know that you are because I have many friends and family in New York, I'm about to share with you many reasons why you, New Yorkers, should come visit or at least discover Connellsville. First, the first thing I love about New York, and I know you may love it too while you're still there. One of the first things I love about New York, and I wouldn't go in depth in some of these because I covered some of them last week. The first thing is the diversity. That's the number one thing for me, why I love New York so much. I love people, and it doesn't matter where you're from. As a matter of fact, I find different uh, ethnic groups, cultural groups interesting. I feel like I become more valuable when I understand and learn about other people's cultures. So that's one of the reasons why I love the diversity of New York so very much. And last week I truly enjoyed some of that. But the diversity and variety goes hand in hand with New York. There's so much to see, so much to do, so much to learn, so much to appreciate in other people. So that's one of the main reasons why I love New York City. If you're bored with, let's say, one section of New York, you can always find another section, maybe even 20 or 30 minutes away, that would seem to be an escape from where you were 20 minutes ago. And that you don't find in many other cities. It feels like a place, a big city, but it has so many different pockets of different things and choices and cultures that you can participate in. It really adds to the excitement of living in New York City. And by the way, if you ride the subway, you know how long, how far it stretches. So you will pay 250. Is it 250 or 275 now? I think you'll pay 275. Yes, 275, and you'd be able to ride probably hundreds of miles just on 275 around the city, through the city, and so on. The number two thing I love about New York City is the liveliness and the passion of most of the people in the city. Now, again, it's the city that never sleeps, right? It's one of the busiest places in the world. And I love the convenience of having, let's say, groceries open late or all night in some cases. And I know that down here we have Walmarts that open all, actually, most Walmarts go until 11 even now. So in New York City, it's just that you have the convenience of all these things that you really enjoy. The other thing that I appreciate about New York is the inspiration. Now, inspiration can come from anywhere, and there's inspiration anywhere you go, you can find it. But there's something about the different cultures in New York that truly, truly inspires you. You can see and find inspiration from anywhere. You can step out of your building or office or on the subway, and you can find things that truly inspires you. The other thing I love is the convenience and proximity to the things you want. I mentioned about things being open all night, or deliveries, or being able to go out at 12 midnight and feel safe walking back. Well, I guess it depends on where you live, right? I lived in the city on Fifth Avenue, a very busy place where people are out all night, so you don't feel very unsafe there, which is wonderful. And I know that there are many other places like that in which you can do things late and feel okay about it. And that's important to me, being able to get something late at night or early morning. And yeah, that's important to me. Another thing is the neighborhoods. Now, this I stopped last week about the convenience of things. This week I'm continuing with the neighborhoods. I mentioned earlier that there's so many different neighborhoods within New York City. New York is a big city, but it feels like basically a cluster of small cities when you really think about it, because each New York City neighborhood has its own, it's like almost like its own district, or it has its own personality and flavor. For example, you're in Harlem or Spanish Harlem and you have one flavor. Like I walked into a store in Spanish Harlem last week and I almost started dancing. I think it was just so cool to hear Spanish music, the rhythm, the beat, the people. It was just so exciting. Or you can go down to the Lower East Side and find a very different vibe, or Astoria, Queens, or Flushing, Queens, or Brooklyn Heights, Coney Island. All of these places you go and you find a different flavor, different people and cultures. How about Little Italy and Staten Island or Chinatown? I mean, you can find so many different cultures all in one city, and that's exciting. And don't worry, Connellsville, I'm coming back to you. I'm sharing all the wonderful things. So when people say, well, discover Connellsville, you didn't talk about all the great things in New York. I want to make sure I cover my bases. So the different neighborhoods in New York City, I think it's really exciting because they all have their own character and culture. And it's just something beautiful when you're able to appreciate the many different cultures that are in New York City. The excitement is nonstop. That's my other thing. The excitement in New York City, it's just absolutely nonstop. I was broadcasting last week from the 27th floor of a high-rise building on Fifth Avenue, and I had the doors slightly open. Guess what? The blaring of the emergency vehicles was so clear. It felt like I was on the first floor. I'm not used to that any longer in Connellsville because you hear an emergency vehicle go by now and again. But something about hearing the emergency vehicles, I didn't even close the door. I allowed it to be part of the broadcast because that's what New York is all about. That's what it was, true to what New York is all about. Now, you can rub elbows with anyone in New York. You can be walking down the street and bump into a movie star, a film star, and well, at least to me, it was like nothing. But to some people, it's like, I just met X, Y, or Z just walking down Madison or on, down one of the avenues. And that's exciting. You have parks specific, like dog parks, where you can go and take your dog and enjoy some time outside, specific for dogs and dog owners. So you can meet other people who love dogs at a dog park. So that's really exciting. So you can also get things like discounted tickets to a Broadway show, which is coming back, as you must know, despite all that the pandemic did. Broadway, the arts, they're coming back to New York City. And that's one thing I truly enjoyed in New York City, being able to go to a Broadway show or an off-Broadway show or an even off-Broadway show and still have a fun time and feel like you got more than your money's worth. And that's really exciting. Any ordinary day can be turned into an extraordinary experience being in New York. Now, we cannot forget the landmarks, the many, many landmarks that are in New York City, like the Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building, the St. Patrick's Cathedral, Grand Central Station, and obviously Central Park. And the list can go on and on and on, like the many museums where I live, where Dad lives on Museum Mile. You walk the entire mile down and just one museum after another to enjoy things from around the world, which is really exciting. We can't forget the magnificence of the architectural structures there are so many treasures in New York, treasures and attractions, I think, like the I mentioned the Statue of Liberty, but just going over to that little island is just so exciting. Just going downtown New York City to the end of New York City is exciting in itself. One can't help but feel proud to live in have traveled to or be part of New York City because it's just that exciting. The opportunities are vast. And that's why so many people clutter or come to New York, right? Although the opportunities are vast, the competition is also great, very great in New York City, more so than most other cities. It requires you to work twice as hard, I think, as you would work if you were in a city like Connellsville, for example. Although I must say, I work pretty hard in Connellsville too. But again, I enjoy working and I enjoy what I do. The one thing I didn't mention in all of this, and I didn't want to bias the broadcast before I began, and I'm not doing this because of, but I'm doing it because of my love for the city. I am the current downtown Connellsville liaison, meaning I communicate with all of the businesses, work with the Fayette Cultural Trust, work with the Connellsville Redevelopment Center, and many of the businesses downtown. And our objective is basically to make downtown Connellsville a better downtown. That's part of my passion for Connellsville, but my passion, my true passion for Connellsville is because of the beauty of the city. It's because of the peace, the joy, the people and the things that you can do in this area. And we'll get to the Gap because the Gap, the Great Allegheny Passage is a major part of what makes Connellsville so special. And a river, the Youghiogheny River that runs through Connellsville is another major reason. I love water. And to walk to work and walk by a stream or waterfall on my way to work through a park, I think that's really exciting. So my excitement, I'm sort of like tapering my excitement until the last couple of weeks of this program. But I must tell you, there are just so many things to love here. But I believe living in New York requires you to work twice as hard, and your creativity, although it could go to great places, it can also be stifled because you feel that you cannot compare to the other great people who are creative around you. I can truly vouch that in New York City, dreams do indeed come true every day. And I'm not, and then despite dreams coming through, I must also talk about the fact that the cost of it. When I worked and lived in New York City, all I felt, was work and live. I went out with clients to different events and Broadway shows and so on, and now and again with friends. But most of my life in New York was about working, going to school, but basically working, because the cost of living in New York City is just so high, and I'm about to get into that. But there are many benefits to being and living in New York City, and I've highlighted many reasons why New York is amazing and why I call it home for most of my life. But as I mentioned before, there's a huge cost to living in New York City. And before I go into the huge cost and some of the reasons why I'm inviting New Yorkers to discover Connellsville, it's because, again, my reason for this program is to bring you tips, tools, and insights for life. And I do that on some really basic principles. One, to help people understand that their mind is their most valuable asset, and that investing in yourself is your greatest investment. Other than that, living with CIA principles, and my CIA principles are character, integrity, and an amazing attitude. Working my entire life, if you were to encapsulate it, it would be about understanding that we were all born with a purpose, for a purpose, to accomplish a purpose. Two, to understand that our mind is our most valuable asset in accomplishing our purpose. Three, to understand that we are our greatest investment, investing in us. And I know this for a fact because I was well invested in the stock market, and I lost most of my investment when the markets crashed in 2007, 2008. So I know that your greatest investment is not your stocks and bonds. It's not your house. It's not your children, although all of these things are great. It is you, because the investment you place in you is able to impact other people's lives around you for generations to come. And then living and leading with an attitude of having a great character, integrity, and a great and amazing attitude as you accomplish your purpose. I think There's nothing that can stop you from accomplishing your purpose if you live with such basic principles. And obviously, love each other like you love yourself. First of all, knowing your creator, I think, is critical to you accomplishing your purpose. I guess you would agree with that, that if you purchased a machine and you don't have the owner's manual and you don't know what the machine is for, you wouldn't know how to operate it. So too with us. There is an owner's manual for us. And once we get into it and understand who we are and our purpose, we are able to accomplish it more confidently. And that's what breakthrough is all about. It's about failing and failing forward, meaning when you fail, don't just stay down, but get up and try again and move forward. So I've spoken about all the excitement and the exciting things that I really love about New York City. And I'm going to share a couple and of the things that I think are challenging in New York, and every New Yorker will agree with these. Well, 99% of New Yorkers will agree with this, and you are the people I'm talking to and inviting to come and discover Connellsville, Pennsylvania. So the first thing that I've discovered about New York that I think most people who live there are challenged by is the high cost of living. New York City is the second most expensive city to live in the United States, behind San Francisco, the second most expensive place. Now, so with that, I'm inviting you to discover Connellsville so that you don't have to have a roommate to be able to live in your apartment. I have not had a roommate in New York City. I'm grateful and thankful to God for that. But I know how tiny the apartments are. I had my first place in New York City was a studio apartment. So such a studio apartment where you're seeing everything in everything, just one room, and your bed is over there, your kitchenette is over here, and everything is just in one area. And I know that it's almost stifling coming home to just one room every single day. So if you're in New York and that's your situation, you're wondering, what can I do? I'm encouraging you to discover Connellsville. And you're wondering, how do you get here? First of all, we are 1 hour south of Pittsburgh and south of Greensburg. However, if you're coming from New York City, Penn Station is right down mid-city, and Amtrak is right there. And guess what? Amtrak stops in Connellsville. Yes, I went to New York last week with Amtrak and came back with Amtrak, and it was a wonderful, peaceful ride. So consider visiting Connellsville. If you're not thinking about moving right now, visit us and come via Amtrak. So you skip the airport challenges and everything and come visit us for a moment. You wouldn't need a roommate to afford a place here in Connellsville. At least I don't think so. And if you do need a roommate, at least you'll have more space and you wouldn't feel like you're living in a closet. And that's what I felt like when I lived in New York City in my first apartment. Now, you could also save, if you're driving, you can save $40 to $140 in parking expenses on a daily basis if you come to Connellsville. Can you imagine? $40 to $140 people pay in parking on average in Manhattan. New Yorkers, come discover what Connellsville has to offer. I have never had to pay to park anywhere in or around Connellsville. Parking, for the most part, almost everywhere is free. By the way, that comment that my brother made about me growing younger rather than older, I truly believe it's because of the beautiful fresh air that we have in Connellsville. No pollution, or if there is, it's very minute. So come visit us in Connellsville. And if you own or want to own a home, you wouldn't be shocked by the property taxes in Connellsville in comparison, obviously, to New York and New York City. So those are a few reasons. I have gone a little over the time I wanted to be on today, but coming down to Connellsville, and because it's fall, I think I want to share this with you. Coming down to Connellsville, you'll see this. This is what our city looks like. Isn't that beautiful? So next week, I'll continue this and share more with you about why, if you're in New York or anywhere in the United States for that matter, why you should come visit at least discover Connellsville. I'll share the many different attractions and go into more details about Connellsville and the amazing things we have here to offer. If this is your first time joining me, I encourage you to come back next week, Sunday, as I continue this discussion on New Yorkers. New Yorkers, come discover Connellsville. Not just New Yorkers, wherever you're listening or looking at this, come discover this amazing city called Connellsville. If this is your first time joining me, I encourage you to one, subscribe, and two, click that notification button so you'll be notified next time when I'm broadcasting. And as I promised, if there is an issue or challenge you're going through now, I just want to pray a simple prayer for you. Right now, Father, I thank you for every person who has watched this broadcast or who will watch it in the future. I thank you for allowing, especially New Yorkers or people who are living in cities that are so busy, that are taking away from their creativity and their purpose. Father, I ask you in the name of Jesus that you speak to their minds and allow them to come and discover this amazing city that we call home here in Connellsville. I thank you, God, for anyone who's going through a challenging time. There's so many people who are going through medical challenges or surgery recovery or having lost a loved one. Father, I pray for them, those who are in hospitals right now with this pandemic, this COVID pandemic. Touch, heal, and deliver, I pray in the mighty name of Jesus. Until next week, I am encouraging you to live your life passionately. Live with passion for your purpose. This is Sharon Joseph, your host of Breakthrough, where I bring you tips, tools, and insights for life. And I encourage you to join me here next Sunday at 7 p.m. Until then, have a fantastic week.